What's up, guys? This is Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn, bringing you guys our UPBA Season 2 draft analysis. I've been waiting over a week to do this because that's how long it took us to do the draft. Literally a week. I think we started last Friday, and today is Friday, and we finished a few hours ago before I'm filming this. Yeah, holy cow, like 5 hours ago or something? I've kind of been putting this off. I've had other things to do today. But I'm excited to bring this to you because the UPBA is a league that I was in Season 1 as well, as many of you will know. And if you don't know that, then I have a playlist called the United Pokemon Battle Association on my channel where you can go through and watch all of my videos for Season 1. Spoiler alert! We were your Season 1 champions! The Ladner Lanturn bringing home the trophy, our first title in the first season and our first season. It was actually the first league I've ever been in for a complete season that had gone to a championship, like had finished a full season. So I'm really proud to say that we brought home the trophy. I think we had an excellent team. We made a pretty solid playoffs run, pretty much the underdog the whole way through. We had a relatively poor regular season, but I think I patched up the team's weaknesses through free agency and such going through, and made some really cool friends along the way. So, this draft is a tiered draft. If you don't know what draft league format is, then I'm maybe not the best person to be explaining all of this. Someone like an A-Drive or a Crimson Seabad might do a better job of explaining exactly what draft format is, but essentially, out of all of the Pokemon in the entire game, we each draft 11 of them. Each Pokemon is designated to its own tier based on kind of what it does. There are Pokemon in Tier 1 that are really good, well-rounded Pokemon that are very strong. Tier 2, which are slightly worse. Tier 3, which are very I wouldn't say average Pokemon, maybe a little bit slightly above average. Tier 4, which are your average Pokemon, and then Tier 5, which is kind of anything else. And then we also had a Mega Tier, where you're required to pick a Mega Pokemon. And depending on how good or bad the Mega Pokemon is, it may gain you points, depending on how bad it is. Now, since this was Season 2, we also had the option to franchise a Pokemon. All of the returning Season 1 coaches had the option to pick a Pokemon to franchise. If you were going to franchise a Tier 1 or a Tier 2, it was going to cost you 40 of your free points. Free points meaning points you can use to pick anything, because we are forced to pick one Tier 1, one Tier 2, two Tier 3s, one Tier 4, one Tier 5, and a Mega, which is 7 of the 11 allocated Pokemon. And then we have 400 free points to spend on our free Pokemon, and each tier has its own point cost. And so if you franchised a Tier 1 or Tier 2, you were deducted 40 points from your free point total, so you were left with 360 points to pick those 4 Pokemon with. And if you franchised Tier 3, 4, or 5, then you were only deducted 20 points from your free point total, which is a little bit more manageable in the overall scheme of things, I think. Not awful, honestly. I'm not sure what I was going. Oh, we're also not allowed to franchise Mega Pokemon. Not that I would have, because I kind of hated Mega Absol with a passion last season. Going into this draft, I was looking to secure as much of my championship team as I could. I didn't want to necessarily build the same championship team, but I kind of wanted to pick up some stuff that I had used in my last championship run. And I did succeed a little bit. So that's kind of some spoilers for the draft. One of them was a franchise. I did opt into franchising a Pokemon, and it was a Tier 1 or a Tier 2 Pokemon that I opted to franchise. I won't spoil that until we get to that slide, but I was starting this draft 40 free points short. However, I already had a secured pick that I felt was worth it to me. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at here. Now, we did allow some things this season that I maybe was not so in favor of. This season was taking place on the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon metagame rather than the Sun and Moon metagame, which we had previously played on last season. So we had added things like Blacephalon, Stakataka, Lycanroc Dusk, and then we ended up allowing Naganadel and Magearna, and we re-allowed Megalodios and Megalodios, which I'm also somewhat against, but the entire league ended up voting in favor of allowing Naganadel and Magearna. And of course they were going to go early. I actually did end up with the 4th overall pick, with my friend Austin being in 3rd. So I knew what Austin was getting, and I knew what Bob was getting. He's the owner. He was in 2nd. I was kind of hoping Bob might change his mind, but it didn't matter. And then Rudiger, who I'm also friends with, was in 1st. And I wasn't sure what I really wanted first over, like with my 4th overall pick, until I found out what he was going to get. And I was really hoping to be able to get Naganadel at 4th. I thought maybe he would go for something a little bit more interesting, maybe pick up Magearna, because if he picked up Magearna, I knew Bob did not want to see. I knew Bob did not want to use Naganadel, and I knew that Austin was going to pick Thundurus-Therian. So Naganadel could have dropped to me at 4th. Unfortunately, it didn't, and Rudiger picked it first. So I was left with a very tough decision, and I actually ended up going with a pick that I wanted to try for a long time. I'm not sure if it's 4th overall worthy. I think it's probably pretty close. Tapu Koko was franchised, so I couldn't pick that, and I've used Tapu Koko before in another league, so I wasn't too set on picking up Tapu Koko. I never really liked Tapu Fini, so that wasn't on my mind. Tapu Bulu I think is absolute garbage, so I didn't want to pick up that. I actually believe Tapu Bulu went completely undrafted this time around, so that's actually kind of an interesting fact. I think it's pretty terrible mon, and I'm not looking to grab that pretty much ever. I did end up grabbing the boy Mew. Mew, our boy Snowcone, I think he kind of looks like a snow cone. We're going to rock with the shiny sprite this time around. First round, grab Mew. Mew's a very, very, very versatile Pokemon. It learns every single TM in the entire game. It has a ton of really obscure move tutor moves that it gets from previous generations. It's a base 100 stat across the board because it's a Pixie, and you can never prep properly for Mew. No team that plays against us, this is a really good start in my mind. Starting off really versatile, because we have hazard setting, we have hazard removal right here, we have momentum with U-turn and Volt Switch potentially on Mew, and we have a nice psychic type, and we have a good speed tier at base 100 already. So I'm checking off a lot of the boxes on my list for each draft. I'm pretty happy with the Mew pick. The tier 1 that I had last season was Kyurem Black, and I wasn't a huge fan of using Kyurem Black, so I wasn't going to pick that up even though I could have. I know Jed was looking at Kyurem Black too, and I really didn't want to snipe Jed. So we grabbed Mew. I'm really happy with Mew. There are 0 teams that are going to be able to prepare for Mew. I feel like I'm a very creative builder for the most part anyways, and on top of Mew's versatility, I think that just sort of like snowballs into a direct advantage for me going into every single match, because no one's going to know what my Mew set is. Yeah, so that's kind of fun. Now, round 2, I was looking to grab Infernape again, because it was a really pivotal mon to my team last season, and it ended up getting taken by Cade because I didn't tell him that I wanted it, so he ended up grabbing it. I'm sure he wouldn't have sniped me if I said that I wanted it again, but it doesn't matter, because I also am sure that someone else would have grabbed it along the way back to me, because keep in mind, this is a 16-person draft, and I was 4th overall, so there was like, was it 12, 13, and then another 12. So 25 picks before it came back to me, I think. Mega Scizor was the Pokemon that I was looking to get in round 2, and that also got sniped along the way, so I was a little bit peeved about that. And I ended up deciding to go for a Mon that I really wanted, and I was scared was going to get taken pretty early. I regret this a little bit, because I think I grabbed it too early. I think I could have waited one more pick for it to go around the wheel with Rudiger and come back to me again, especially because Rudiger already had his Dragon. I thought that maybe Bob might pick this, so I wanted to go for this, because I know Austin wasn't going to take it from me. We've been discussing draft plans the entire time, and he wasn't going to grab it. So next up in round 2, I ended up picking up Goodra, or Slick Boy. I like that nickname. Goodra fills a few boxes on my team. I'm really happy to say that it's also a very versatile mon. You can run it physically or specially offensive. Typically you slap an Assault Vest on it and turn it into a special wall because of its base 150 SPDF, which also ticks off the special defensive wall on my team that I needed. So I'm okay with grabbing this. I think it's super solid, super solid Pokemon. I've really been a fan of Goodra for a while, and this is the first time I've been able to draft it. It ticks off the Dragon for my Fairy Dragon Steel core, so we're finally starting one of our cores. I love the prospect of having Goodra on this team. It gets so many good coverage moves. It gets 2 great abilities in Sap Sipper and Gooey, and I'm like pumped to use Goodra this season. I think it's going to be pretty solid for me. It kind of doesn't cover Mew's weaknesses very well, and Mew doesn't cover its weaknesses very well, but I'm hoping to build up some more synergy with the team again later. Mew is very weak to Dark and Ghost, and Goodra is weak to Ice, and Dragon, and Fairy, and so they don't cover each other at all yet. However, Goodra can tank the special hits that Mew doesn't want to take. I don't know. if you're ever running like a physically defensive Mew, then specially defensive Goodra kind of complements it that way. Round 3, I was looking to grab Scizor when it came back to me. To be honest, I really wanted to grab a solid Steel type, and I was looking at regular Scizor. I think regular Scizor does complement these a little bit better because Goodra can sit there and tank the fire moves that regular Scizor wants to tank. Scizor doesn't really care about Dark type moves. It resists the Ice, it resists the Dragon, and it resists the Fairy for Goodra. Both of those two like complement each other pretty well. Mew and Scizor maybe not so much, although the fact that Scizor is a bug type covers the Dark types pretty well. It can't switch in on the moves, but it can deal with Dark types well. And so I was pretty peeved that Rudiger sniped the Scizor. I'm not mad anymore, obviously, but at the time I was like, well, Mega Scizor's gone and Scizor's gone. And so that's kind of where my mistake was in picking Goodra right away, is that I could have got Scizor first, and then Goodra would have been available on the 3rd round coming back to me. But instead, I grabbed another Pokemon I've been wanting to try, and it's the start to my other core, my Firewire Grass core. I ended up picking up Greninja, or Tide, as his nickname is going to be in this league. This is Torrent Greninja, and I haven't used Greninja before. I almost got a trade for Protean Greninja in the LET, and I'm going to look to draft Protean Greninja in the Season 2 of the LET. But for now, we'll stick with Torrent Greninja. I think it's undervalued, potentially, with Torrent. I think it's a super solid mon, regardless of its ability. Honestly, Protean makes it, like, pushes it a little bit over the edge, but Torrent is kind of balanced. It still gets ridiculous coverage. It gets a wide variety of Z moves to use. And more momentum, which I like. It's a Dark type to tank Ghost type attacks that Mew doesn't want to take. It's also a Dark type to tank the Dark type attacks that Mew doesn't want to take. So we're building up a little bit more synergy with the Mew there. Maybe one of the other cores that's kind of important is like a Psychic Fighting Dark core. I think kind of works well together. It's really fast. So I didn't really mention this, but Goodra's not that slow, to be honest. Goodra is a base 80 speed. But Greninja is a base 122 speed, and so this thing, we're sort of like in between, right? So we had base 100 speed in the middle, then we have a base 80 on the lower end, and then base 122 at the high end. The nice thing about Greninja being 122 is that it outspeeds Naganadel if we ever play Rudiger in the regular season, and it also outspeeds Thundurus-Therian if we ever play Magic in the regular season. Both of those mons, like the speed tier of 121 is not very common. Neither is the speed tier of 120, to be honest. I think the only memorable one in my mind is regular Sceptile. But it's useful to have that exact speed tier to outspeed those two huge threats. I love more momentum. This actually gives me some more hazards. So I had some hazard setting in Mew, which gets Stealth Rocks, but Greninja gets Spikes and Toxic Spikes as well. We have some more priority to add on to Mew's priority with Water Shuriken, and I believe it gets Quick Attack too. Not that that matters unless we were Protean, and then we could just turn into a normal type. Yeah, tons of coverage. I'm super excited about Greninja. Round 4, it had to go all the way back down and then all the way back up to me, and I was looking at Whimsicott. I wanted a grass and a fairy type to sort of fill a hole into both of those cores going for me, and Whimsicott filled a speed tier that I needed on my team, and I was kind of just excited to want to use Whimsicott, but Liam sniped it from me the pick before me. I was really mad about that. I was really pissed, so I think I ended up just going with my steel, and we ended up picking up Bronzong. Sort of a lackluster steel type, to be honest. It's a mixed defensive wall. It's a good stealth rocker. It's a reliable stealth rocker, which I can be happy with. Very, very bulky Pokemon. We saw Bronzong do quite a bit of work on Rudiger's team last season, actually. I think he used it really well, and it complemented the Charizard X pretty well, I think. Ended up tanking hits that Charizard didn't want to tank, especially ground hits because of the Levitate ability. Bronzong will be nicknamed Clang because it's a bell, and bells make a clang noise when you hit them. Happy with Bronzong for the most part. It fills the steel type role well, although I'm not stoked about it having the same psychic typing as Mew, so again, we're weak to knockoff, we're weak to ghost attacks. Granted, it can tank ice attacks for Goodra fairly well. Greninja really doesn't want to sit in front of an ice attack too much because it's sort of a frail... Greninja's really on the frailer side. It's more of an offensive threat than a defensive threat. So we can tank the ice attacks for Goodra, we can tank the fairy attacks for Goodra, and we can tank the dragon attacks for Goodra really, really well. I can be happy about that at least. Round 5. It came back around, and I had a Mega pick in mind that I didn't want to grab this round because I didn't think anybody else was eyeing it, to be honest. It's not one of the more seen Megas, and so I ended up going with my Grass type next because I thought this would go the next round. We picked up Decidueye, or Sherlock. Now, Decidueye I haven't tried yet, and I've seen Cade use it a lot, and I'm excited to say that I have it on my team. We'll see what kind of role it fits. I already kind of have a Spidef wall in Goodra, so it's not really going to fit that. It might fit more of an offensive role on the team. It is a defogger, so now I have 2 hazard removers in Mew and Decidueye, which I can be reasonably happy with. It is a ghost type, so again, we're adding to the dark and ghost weakness, which I'm a little bit peeved about. I shouldn't be saying that so much. I'm annoyed at myself that I let myself get such a huge knockoff weakness so early. I have 3 Mons out of 5 weak to knockoff, which is pretty bad. We can't tank an ice move for the Goodra. We can tank electric moves for Greninja, at the very least. Not that Goodra wouldn't be able to tank an electric move, but Goodra can't tank a physical electric move very well. So Decidueye can deal with that. It's a good trapper with like Toxic, Spirit Shackle shenanigans, and Roost and stuff like that. It's actually a pretty reliably bulky mon. Also adds to our momentum, so we have Mew, Greninja, and Decidueye that can all U-turn or Volt Switch out. I love me some momentum, and that's kind of the best thing that I'm seeing with Decidueye here. I'm not sure how much Decidueye adds to my team. I may look to drop this for something else later. I guess we'll find out. But for now, Decidueye is on the team, and I'm hoping that it'll fulfill the role that it's given. But right after I picked Decidueye, the Mega I was looking at got sniped, so I was really mad about that, because at this point I've been sniped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times already, and it's only round 5. So that's really annoying. Mega Manectric was the Pokemon, the Mega that I was looking at, and it got sniped by Liam, again, 1 pick after me. So you can go... I don't know. I'm hoping to get revenge on Liam in our match if we play this season for him taking 2 of the Mons that I was looking at. God damn it. Decidueye slows my team down a little bit with the Bronzong there too. I'm going with speed tiers a little bit lower than I'd like to be, so we're going to try and patch that in the next few picks as well. Round 6 we did not get sniped, but we ended up picking up Ambipom, which is one of the members from my championship squad. We ended up picking up Ambipom at the trade deadline last season, and I had a ton of fun using it. Especially in the playoffs, I think Ambipom put in a lot of work for my team, and Joey, or Pokeaim, had been putting in work on the UU ladder, getting Ambipom all the way up to UU from NU, so that's really cool. That's why it's going to be nicknamed TTT for 2 to the top. Ambipom is a pretty versatile mon. It gives me a really good speed tier in between Mew and Greninja, which I'm pretty happy about. More momentum is really cool. More priority is really cool as well. Oh, I forgot to mention that Decidueye gets Sucker Punch, so that's really neat. More priority there. We have some priority options. And having a normal type is just really cool, especially one as versatile as Ambipom. I'm not sure how feasible it would be for me to ever bring this, but something like a Nasty Plot Technician Water Pulse actually does work. Ambipom is a really unique Pokemon, and that you can run it one set all the time and it'll do work, or you can run many sets and it'll do potentially a little bit more. I'm really excited to thank Ambipom for coming back from the championship team into Season 2, and we will look to perform better than we did last season with the Ambipom. Hopefully win another championship with it. Again, no more snipes in round 7, but I ended up grabbing my Mega here. I wanted to fill this Mega hole. I thought someone might be looking at this Mega, and I really wanted to finish off one of my cores so far, as well as give myself a Pokemon that's not weak to knockoff. Now, granted, any Mega won't be weak to knockoff, but this one in particular resists the hits. We ended up picking up Mega Houndoom, or Black. I have Mega Houndoom in 2 other leagues at the moment. Neither of them I upload, so this will be the upload league for Mega Houndoom. I'm really enjoying using this thing. I think it's a really cool mon, and it actually hits really hard. One of the leagues I have it without Sun, and one of the leagues I have it with Sun. With Sun, it's going to hit like an absolute truck with solar power. There's really not a switch in to a solar power Sun boosted Fire Blast from this thing. It's very fast at 115. I'm not super stoked about it having the same speed tier as Ambipom. I really don't like doubling up on speed tiers very much, but I like the fact that it's a fire type. So we've finished our Fire Water Grass core now with Greninja, Decidueye, Mega Houndoom. I think that's a pretty good Fire Water Grass core. It's a very offensive Fire Water Grass core. It's not bulky like most Fire Water Grass cores you see. I think it's one of the better Fire Water Grass cores in the entire league. We added another Dark type, so we have Houndoom and Greninja, both immune to prankster moves, and both can resist knockoff pretty well. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Mega Houndoom, despite the fact that its coverage is reasonably piss poor, it's also a Sucker Punch user if I want it to be. It really only needs Nasty Plot and then like Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, Dark Pulse, and you can kind of run through a team. We'll see how it works out this season. I love the thing Death, obviously that's why I've drafted it 3 leagues in a row. Now, round 8 came all the way back to me. I was looking at Silvally initially, thinking that Parting Shot support for my team could be kind of cool. I thought that maybe Silvally could be neat for dealing with my knockoff weakness as well. I don't believe the memories get knocked off, and it's a good... It's another good pivot with a lot of the good pivots on my team. Mew's a good pivot, Greninja, Decidueye, Ambipom, all good pivots. And I thought Silvally might fill the team pretty well. That dude ended up taking it. I wasn't super mad because I had other things that I was looking at for the most part. But I ended up dipping down into Tier 5, and I grabbed Primeape. Primeape's the boy. I have Primeape in D&D, and it hasn't done too much work for me in D&D, but my opponents haven't really had things to abuse Defiant with. Now, there's a lot of teams that I can abuse Defiant with in this league. I'm really excited to bring Primeape. Primeape is kind of a baller. Joe Louis is like a really good boxer. I don't know how many of you guys would actually know who Joe Louis is. I'm not a huge boxing fanatic myself, but I know he's one of the all-time greats, and that's what Primeape is. Gives me more momentum, gives me a fighting type for like a psychic dark fighting core, if you want to call it that. I think that's actually kind of an important trio to have in a team, because 2 of them resist the dark types for psychic type moves. Fighting types can take care of the dark types that psychic types don't want to take, and typically a lot of the fighting types will get U-turn as well, which can kind of deal with the same thing as well. It's just another triangle that fits in with like Fairy Dragon Steel, and Firewater Grass. I'm going to start looking to build this kind of core in more of my teams, having like a Firewater Grass, Fairy Dragon Steel, and a Psychic fighting Dark. I think it's reasonably important to actually get a fast fighting, and Primeape gave me a speed tier that I was severely lacking, which is between 80 and 100. So I was happy to grab that. Again, it's not the best coverage, but another physical attacker is kind of useful. I've kind of built up a reasonably special heavy. For the most part, you see Mew specially offensive, so I've built up a reasonably special heavy team so far, and so it's nice to have a good physical attacker on the team. Round 9, it came around the wheel and came back to me, and I decided to grab a tier 1 with my other free pick, or one of my 2 other free picks left. This was kind of an important pick because I did not want any ground types, and tier 1 was almost completely dry. I needed another electric type to make up for the fact that Mega Manectric got sniped. So I ended up dipping into tier 1 again, and I grabbed Thundurus-Therian, or Dundee's. Now, Thundee is a mon that I haven't used too extensively. I've laddered with it quite a bit. I ladder with like, I think it's Agility Z set with like, it's like Gigavolt Havoc, like Thunderbolt, HP Ice, Volt Switch or something. I can't remember what the last move is. Dark Pulse maybe? Anyways, I've laddered fairly extensively with Thundurus on a very special team that I have that got me into like the 1500s-ish. And I just picked up Thundurus in the LET 1 week before playoffs started, like just before the last week of play. So I've got a little bit of experience with Thundurus. For the most part, I'm fairly new to the Pokemon, but I know it gets Volt Absorb, which is really cool. The only thing that can go through that is a Mold Breaker Pokemon with an Electric type attack, and most Mold Breakers will be physical. The only special Mold Breaker that would be able to touch Thundurus off the top of my head is Mega Ampharos, which nobody drafted, even though we would take the hit neutrally. So Thundurus I like on the team. I think the fact that it gets Agility Nasty Plot setup is really useful for the team. It's a speed tier right above Mew and below Ambipom, which is really helpful. Ambipom Mega Houndoom, sorry. Fast Electric type, very, very hard special hitter. It gets Defog now, so it's some removal, and it's also a reasonable Z user if I decide to go that way. I knew Dat Dude was looking at Thundurus. There's no way that he wasn't. We were the only 2 people left on the board at this point by round 9 that could afford to grab another tier 1, and so I'm glad I grabbed this now while I still could. Otherwise, I may have just missed out on an electric immunity entirely, and even just an electric type entirely. So that's kind of cool. Round 10 came all the way back to me, and I've been saving my surprise for round 10 because my franchise is in round 11, which is maybe a surprise for some of you if you haven't seen me play in leagues before. But my surprise pick for the entire league in round 10 is one of my favorite mons to ladder with in PU. The only free I could afford at this point was a tier 5. And that might give some hints, but I love this thing to death in PU. It's such a beast, and I'm hoping to turn it into the next kill leader of the league. We got my boy Quail, or Quailord, the whale, the lord himself, Quail. Wailord is a monster. Water Spout with this thing destroys people. The fact that it's only a 60 speed tier does not throw me off whatsoever. You pop a Choice Specs on this thing, and it will just smack somebody. I love Wailord so much. I'm blown away by how much I love Wailord. It doesn't fit the team. I'm not going to lie, it doesn't. I already have a water type in Greninja. It's a reasonably bulky water with base 170 HP. If it got Wish, that'd be hilarious. But I enlarged the sprite on the screen to show you how big this is and how much of an MVP this guy is going to be. Quail, the Wailord. I love this thing. Keep an eye out for Quail. Not in week 1. Potentially in week 1. Keep an eye out for Quail. I love Wailord. I'm sorry about that. I got really excited because Wailord is like my absolute favorite low tier Pokemon to ladder with. Anything under OU, Wailord is it. It's it. Wailord is just I love Wailord so much. Now, round 11, franchise pick. you can see on your screen there that I only have a tier 2 left to grab. Oh, and what's that, Ian? Isn't Gudra a tier 2? Well, if you had noticed from round 2, you would have known that my franchise was a tier 2 pick, because Gudra went straight to the free slot there. Yeah, this Pokemon is also an MVP, and it was the kill leader of Season 1. What am I going to do? Not franchise it? I love this thing to death, even more than Wailord, and I grabbed my boy Mimikyu. Mimikyu, very helpful to the team. Last season, it ended up being the kill leader in the entire league. It picked up something like 5 kills in playoffs as well, which I was stoked about too. Have to shout out Sheet, the Mimikyu. We're bringing back the exact same one from last season, so it can keep up its kill leading glory. Mimikyu it completes my Fairy Dragon Steel core as well. Now, granted, I had this since before the draft, so I already had the Fairy Dragon Steel core done when I picked Bronzong, realistically. But I love Mimikyu to death. I've used it so well in the past. Now, I haven't been that creative with my Mimikyu sets, right? I had a few creative ones at the beginning of UPBA, and then I realized the standard set was kind of the way to go because it just kind of just blew through teams. So we'll see where we go with Mimikyu this season. I'm looking to have Wailord be the kill leader, obviously, but Mimikyu is going to be a nice close second. People don't have a way to stop Mimikyu generally, and really only Mold Breaker Pokemon can actually like beat it before it gets a Sword Stance up. So I don't know. I'm not sure if the league will adapt to me bringing Mimikyu or not yet, or if they will falter and make Mimikyu the kill leader again. I'm not entirely sold on that yet. Mimikyu is too good for me to pass up a franchise on it, and granted, because it was a tier 2 and I paid 40 extra points for it, it cost me 160 points essentially to get Mimikyu. Now, I think I'm willing to pay that price. I've seen leagues where Mimikyu's tier 1. I think tier 1 is overvaluing it, but I think if there's a tier between tier 1 and tier 2, I would put Mimikyu in there with like Ferrothorn and like Raikou and Superior. I think that's sort of where I'd put, maybe Thundurus-Therian kind of fits in there too. Mimikyu's so awesome. Not much more to say about that. The fact that it's Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon means I can use the Mimikium Z crystal on my Mimikyu to get Let's Snuggle Forever, which is kind of a bonus, to be honest, in my mind. I've had such great success with Mimikyu in the past. I think I've had it probably in like 8 leagues at this point. I pretty much draft it every time I get a chance to, mostly because I love it, but secondarily because I don't want to play against it. Disguise is a pain in the ass to play against, and I like to abuse the hell out of that fact. It's neat in the fact that you can't really speed creep it very well because Mew can like speed creep above it. So I don't know. It's kind of a neat speed tier. I might be lacking like a speed tier in there. I think between 60 and 33 would have been nice to have a speed tier, and maybe like above 122 would have been nice to have a speed tier. Maybe in the mid between 100 and 110. I think we have reasonable hazard support, reasonable hazard removal. Unfortunately, we didn't draft Rapid Spin, so I can't keep my own hazards on the field if I wanted to. I think we drafted a great type chart along with things. The only repeating type I believe we have 2 repeating types, I think. 3. Oh, 3. Well, Dark is not a bad repeating type to have, but we have the dual Psychic typing, which kind of cancels out the dual Dark typing because they both cover each other. Like, Psychic covers the Dark's fighting weakness, and Dark covers the Psychic Dark and Ghost weakness. And then Wailord and Greninja the Water is the other 2. And honestly, Water is not the worst typing to have a dual of, especially with Thundurus-Therian because of my Electric immunity and Volt Absorb. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how the draft went. I'm not sold on the team yet. I don't think it's the best team I've ever drafted necessarily, but I do think it's a pretty solid team, and I'm hoping we can pick up some wins. Granted, I was the Season 1 champion, so I will be looking to defend my title, but on like low-key, I'm not going to take this that seriously because I have the title now. So what do I have to lose? Not much, really. Like, I've already got the title. Am I looking to repeat? Yes. Am I that bummed if I don't? No, because I've got the title already. So, yeah. Next up, I'll talk about Z Captains real quick here, and we'll sort of go over our Z Captains. So we are allowed to draft 2 offensive Z Captains. Well, we get to choose them. 2 offensive Z Captains and 1 Super Saiyan Z Captain. So the Super Saiyan Z Captain can use any Z move that the Pokemon learns at all, which of course I slapped on Mew because there's a ton of good options for this. I've seen Magic use a few. I'm not going to give away my strats, but especially with Mew because Mew's so versatile. But yeah, Mew gets a wide variety of Z moves. Sunny day. And then I chose 2 offensive Z Captains. Now, Mimikyu was my Super Saiyan Z Captain last season, so that I could use Z Splash. Now, I think with Mimikyu Z, it's not worth running Z Splash when I can run Swords Dance, Mimikyu Z Play Rough to guarantee a Play Rough hit, do a ton of damage to something with that. I think it's more worth my time to run that over Z Splash. Or just regular SD Life Orb set that Mimikyu likes to run. So I'm not too bummed about that because we still get the boosting power, and I think it's enough generally to get the same breaking potential that Mimikyu had last season. Greninja, another offensive Z Captain, gets a boatload of coverage moves. So good luck predicting what Z Crystal I'm going to bring, because Mew gets a ton and Greninja gets a ton. I don't see... I can't foresee a scenario where any team that I face is going to be able to predict what Z move I'm going to run, because I could run Z Mimikyu, I could run whatever Z Greninja, or I could run whatever Z Mew. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. I think my team is... I think this is the most unpredictable team that I've ever brought. Now, granted, there are some predictable things. Bronzong is going to be a wall most of the time. Primeape is going to be locked into some offensive role most of the time. Gudra is going to be mostly a special wall most of the time. I don't know. Like, that's kind of it. But, excuse me. While there are those predictabilities, there's a lot of unpredictability that I'm really stoked about. And some other unpredictability before we finish off the video here is myself. I have a new team name in the books, cooking in the books, the Kelowna Crocodiles. I currently go to school in Kelowna, but I'm originally from Vancouver. I'm actually from a place called Delta, which is really close to Ladner, which is, well, Ladner is actually part of Delta, but it's complicated. I won't get into it here. Yeah, which is where Ladner Lanturn came from, close to my heart, close to my home. And I've spent the last 4 years of my life going to school in Kelowna, and I feel like it's sort of grown on me a little bit, even though I kind of hate the city. We have a really cool hockey team called the Kelowna Rockets, and their logo is very similar. Well, it's a monster called the Ogopogo, which... Okay, you know what? This is really like going too deep into the situation. I have a new team name coming up. I won a contest to get a logo made and potentially some graphics for videos and stuff like that, so look out for that. Yeah, my team name, just a heads up, my team name might change for this league in the middle of the season, and that's because I really want to try out the new Kelowna Crocodiles, so we'll see how well that goes, and we'll see how many videos it takes for me to forget that I changed from Ladner Lanturn to Kelowna Crocodiles partway through. I will keep you guys informed on when I'm making that change, however, but you're probably going to have to look at all my videos at least in the UPBA to check that out. So yeah, that's all from me, and I will catch you guys for week 1 of the UPBA Season 2.